The biggest crime in this book is in its existence. Hi, welcome to Talking About Books. Today we're joined by Jimena, the javelina, because she's the closest stuffed animal I have to a horse. More on that in a sec. I have this dream where I'm in a thrift store and I look at an interesting book and it's the perfect book. It's incredible and it's just what I needed and it's full of soul and maybe there's a little dedication that reminds me that humans love each other. And so I picked up this book hoping, but this book killed that dream and killed a little piece of me. Here's how this video is going to work. Obviously, I do not like this book, and I will shit on it, don't worry, but I'm not going to be an asshole. I'm going to give it its shot, so I'm going to read the summary, I'm going to tell you the entire plot, I will spoil it, don't fucking read this book. And then I will go over my scoring system. I'll give it an average score and then point deductions or adding points for certain passages that I liked or Here's the inside flap cover. This is Peter Lovesey's Skeleton Hill. On Lanston Hill, near Bath, a battle between Roundheads and Cavaliers that took place over 350 years ago is annually reenacted. Two of the participants discover a skeleton that turns out to be female, headless, and only about 20 years old. 2 weeks later, the body of one of them, a professor who played a Cavalier, is found nearby at Beckford's Tower, a local folly. He has been murdered. This turns out to be one of the most puzzling cases that has ever confronted Detective Superintendent Peter Diamond, involving golf, horse racing, Civil War reenactment, and even the Cyrillic alphabet. In the course of his investigation, Peter Diamond butts heads with a group of vigilantes who call themselves the Lanston Society, discovering in the process that his boss, Georgina, is a member. She resolves to sideline Diamond, but matters don't pan out in accordance with her plans. So the story starts with a history professor who's doing the reenactment for his studies, and he has a cold one with one of the guys who buried the beer underneath a fallen tree. It's the roots and then the dirt, and then they keep digging a little bit and there's a body. It's just bones at this point, but the history professor is whoa, we're reenacting in the same place that this event happened. If it's a person from that time, that's a huge archaeological find. And the other guy's let's bury it back up. I just want to drink beer and pretend to shoot people. And he's fine. And then he's found dead a couple weeks later. And then a dog digs up a bone from the same area because the dirt was freshly removed. And now Peter Diamond is on the case. Long story short, we find out that the murders of the history professor, his name is Rupert. So Rupert's murder may be connected to whatever murder took place to have this woman buried by the tree. They find this zipper and they're able to source it back with fashion history, which is actually really cool. And they figure out that it was from an Eastern European woman. It belonged to this woman named Nadia. She was a sex worker. She immigrated from Eastern Europe. I think it might have been Ukraine. They take a really long time trying to track her and figure out, okay, well, why was she killed? Why was she murdered? And then why was she buried underneath this tree? And then why is Rupert involved? And long story short, they found out that Rupert was hiding in a cemetery, creepy, and he was using this blanket, and it's a horse blanket, and there's horse hair on the area, so they do a little forensic with the horse hair, but that same horse's hair was found in the place where Nadia was buried. It was a horse-connected murder. Bitch. So there's this is a racehorse in town. It's in Britain, I don't know why I did that. And there was this racehorse called Hang Glider who was gonna make it in the horse racing big leagues. I don't know anything about horse racing, but he broke his foot or something because he's a fucking horse, and so they're damn, he can't race anymore. So they're okay, well, if the horse can fuck, it's still worth money. That's not how they said it in the book, but they'll pay a lot of money for him as a breeding horse because he was a hang glider in the stables. I don't know what to think about horses. They're if we can sell it, the horse could breed and just kill it in breeding, and we'll get a bunch of money for it, and then hang glider is not our problem anymore. So they had one last thing around, for him, to go around the horse place where, all the people who really remembered him could be oh, my hang glider. And then the horse was stolen, and they lost out on the deal. It was a huge loss for the horse community and, monetarily for the guy who owned the horse, and that was it. But the horse hair was Hang Glider's hair. So what the fuck is going on? I'll tell you what it took them fucking forever to find out. Nadia, the sex worker, loved horses, and so she wanted a job with the kind of the stable that worked with hang glider, and so she kind of like was just walking around the horse racetrack because she just loved horses so much. You know, she's a horse girl, and she's talking to the guy who was like looking at hang glider in the cart while like everything was going on. People were like, the owners and everything were drinking or whatever, and she seduces the dude and she has sex with him, and then he, you know, comes back from the sex and the horse is gone. So here's the real story. Am I telling this in a convoluted way? Yeah. I am saving you from this, so you're welcome. So what actually happened is the person who owned the horse, Tippling was his last name. We'll call him Tin Man, I don't give a shit. I don't respect any of these characters. He had to run some tests to make sure the horse could fuck and reproduce. And so his daughter was a veterinarian, so he just like had her do it, whatever. And so they did like the sperm count, and he had 0 sperm counts because he's a fucking loser. Which means the deal. I shouldn't horse shame. I'm sorry. He's infertile, which means the deal is off, and they just lost like I think like $500,000. The only thing they can do, I mean, they were gonna lose a shit ton of money, so the only thing they have left is that insurance plan because they get, I don't know, an amount of money, but only if there's foul play. So they play foul. So what they do is he has one last parade, which is kind of fucked up, but they paraded him around the place knowing he was about to get shot. God damn. Because, yeah, they shot the horse. So the veterinarian got like a horse trailer, and they moved hang glider in while you know, they were fucking, and they took the horse trailer off to like this old, like somewhat collapsed like bridge that Tin Man, horse owner, had like surveyed a while ago because he was a civic engineer, and they just shot the horse in the head with like a veterinarian gun. I don't know. That's what it says. So the horse died. And they just let the fucking trailer go into the bridge, and the horse decomposed down there. But Nadia had followed and had seen them. She became a witness to them. Like, she was trying to get a job from them, so she kind of became a witness, so they had to kill her. So the veterinarian daughter shot her with the vet gun, and she had to remove the head because, I mean, I guess that's, I mean, it's so obvious, right? And so then they buried her where they knew they couldn't like be seen, because that Lansing Society that was mentioned on the front cover like are really just a bunch of old people who like survey the area, so they could survey the area to make sure there are no witnesses. So they put the body in the ground, put the dirt back on top, and then it was fine until it wasn't, because Rupert, that fucking history professor, dug it up again, and he went back to go for the bones, and they found him, so they hit him in the head with one of the horse owner Tippling's Tin Man's golf clubs, but it did not do the job. So he ran around making a ruckus, he was unconscious, and he was homeless, and everyone was mean to him, and that's just a personal addition. And then they hit him again with a golf club or something, and then he died, and then they found the body, and they all traced it back to this. So this entire fucking thing was because a horse had no juice left in his balls, and that is the most elegant way to say it. So that's the thing. Horse can't fulfill the deal, they kill the horse. There's a witness, they don't want to be caught for insurance fraud, so they kill the witness. Someone finds the body, he might know, they killed him. Peter Diamond finds out the case. That's a summary. I think that was pretty succinct. I think that was good. Sorry for the jump cuts on that one. I'm bad at this. So we're going to talk a little bit about the general vibes of this book. I like a good mystery. I think it's fun. I think it's fresh. I think it's cool too, because something that Peter Lovesey does a lot in this book is he incorporates the history of, I don't know where the fuck, England. I don't know what it said. I'm an American girl. It's really cool the way he kind of weaves that in. And I actually wrote something down in my theory. We'll get to this in a second. I said Lovesey has this really good way of weaving in environments and history and characterism, but the problem is his characters are ass or asses, and that's the other part. Is again, like I said, he's so good at weaving in emotions and history. Sometimes not so good. Sometimes it's a little obvious, but it doesn't completely take you out of it. And I could totally, it's not my thing, but I could totally see why someone would love to like kind of get all these like tidbits and information. But the problem is that everything else, I would say that's 10% of the book, and the other 90% is insufferable, and the characters really add to that. And the main character we focus on is Peter Diamond, and Peter Diamond, Peter Diamond is just straight up an asshole. He is the governor. They say that. I feel like no one's gonna believe me. Hold on. Look it. Governor. But he is an ass. Peter Diamond is a misogynistic, inconsiderate asshole who has plenty of chances for character growth in this book, which is a part of the series, and it never happens, and it just makes everything feel unfulfilling and annoying, and seeing as he's the main character of the book, it makes it insufferable. And I'm gonna get into that because I have the fucking textual evidence written on this goddamn note card. Every single thing is filled up with a shit ton of pages. And this is where my scoring system comes in. Here's how this is gonna work. I am going to give you the general score, and then every single thing on this, every infraction, negative points, depending on how bad it is. And there's a couple positive points, but we'll see. So we're gonna go through this together, and I'm gonna relive my trauma for you. Overall, I'm gonna give this book a 60. That is too high. Overall, I'm gonna give this book a 30 out of 100. I think conceptually it was pretty okay. It was sound. It could have been something that was really engrossing and just really interesting in general, except all of it was about some of the most musty, annoying people you can imagine, and it sucked ass. So, 2 more things before we get into the infractions. 1, this was written in 2009, so a lot of the misogyny you're about to hear is not completely unexpected, but definitely unacceptable. Also, the main character I hate, his name is Peter Diamond. The author's name is Peter Lovesey. Yikes. Starting strong with incredible exposition on page 13. His, Peter Diamond's, romantic prospects were fair game. The kitchen girls knew about his friendship with Paloma Keene. What they didn't know was how much he missed his murdered wife, Steph. This is our first big count of misogyny in the book. It is when the dogs first dig up the bone of what we soon find out is Nadia, and the dog's owner is a woman, and what follows is dialogue that would never come out of a real woman's mouth. Miss Herbert produced a rubber ball from her handbag. She's talking to Peter Diamond. Try throwing this down the hill. Me? They like you, I can tell. Besides, men are better at throwing. Who's saying that? Who's saying that? And it sucks too, because right after comes like a good characterization line. I'm supposed to be working, he said, secretly pleased to win the dog's approval. That's funny. That's charming. Take the fucking sexism out. Don't worry, it gets worse. On page 21, I'm not going to get that bone for my dog to chew on, am I? He smiled, admiring her nerve. Staunch single woman like this, used to standing up for the rights, had his respect. Okay. Page 32. This is when I knew it was bad, and I should have quit here. Get ready. He, Peter Diamond, turned his back on them and gazed across the vast landscape, as if something of much more interest was happening 2 miles away. Actually, the action was much closer. Inborg's head and shoulders appeared over the brow of the hill. Besides her, at about the level of her bobbing breasts, was a man in a white zipper suit carrying a cardboard box almost as big as himself. Torso. At the level of her torso. I'm going to speed round the rest of these, because we have a lot more to go through. 59. There's some things, like little sides that Lovesey puts in where it's like, what? Okay, this is not relevant. Golf wasn't his sport, Peter Diamond's. Anyway, the only white ball game worth playing was table tennis. His sort, in the old ping pong tradition, with sandpaper bats and no crafty spinning allowed. Bro, you're on a murder investigation. Get your mind off of ping pong. This one is not as funny. And these are the parts that fucking kill it. Page 70, this is sexism. He'd been told on a PR course he attended that the majority of so-called witnesses are attention seekers. This woman was a prime example. His spirits improved when Mrs. Swithin came in, one of those well-bred old ladies you know will keep their emotions in check. 73 includes, I think, the first infraction with Georgina, who is Peter Diamond's boss. And I think Georgina's most notable character trait is that she has really big tits. And he says that every single time. Here's an example. She folded her arms and gave a defiant tilt to the most eloquent bosom in Bath. 89 to 90, sexism. She inhaled, and her twin emblems of disquiet threatened to surge across the desk and demolish him. That was about Georgina. 103, I don't think it's notable, but I'm including it because I read it, so you have to. It's not that bad, but why? There's no points for this one, just like points for my morale. The problem with the sex murderer theory, he said, ignoring that, is that he'd need to have a spade on him to bury his victim. If your thoughts are on sex, do you carry a spade in your car? A pause while he regretted phrasing it that way. Okay, this is another... Okay, 114. No relationships? This is someone talking to Diamond, and then Diamond responds, none that we know about. Gay? No one has mentioned it. Now he sensed what was going on. They wanted to know where he stood on the issue of homosexuality. Fair enough, he thought, but there wasn't time for all that. I don't like that one. It rubs me the wrong way. 136. This is about Georgina. You know what's about to happen. Peter Diamond is looking at an old picture of Georgina. Georgina was saluting in the front row of the march past. She was probably 50 pounds lighter in weight, but she still had the outstanding chest of her year. That's weird. So Ingeborg is a name that I'm definitely mispronouncing, and is also the name of one of like his like junior detectives or officers or whatever. Peter Diamond is her boss, and she's like his like third right hand man. She's also attractive, and as we've heard, she has boobs. So this is talking about her. 140. One of the police minibuses had been booked for this, and Diamond, sexist when it suited, had invited Ingeborg along as a morale booster for the newcomers. A couple times Lovesey tried to make it like they had a father-daughter relationship and that he cared for her like a child. So, okay, this kind of undercuts a running theme that I really had a problem with because, like I mentioned, Nadia was a sex worker, and I just feel like it's weird, and the way he handles it is kind of gross and dehumanizing, unfortunately. And so here's kind of how as they're starting to like suspect that, here's kind of an excerpt of how they talk about it, and it just, I truly don't know enough about really any of it to like really say decisively, is this good, is this bad? But it definitely, it was notable enough to me to write down. So 157, this is Peter Diamond talking to his partner. It could be sheer numbers. You and I know about human trafficking from East Europe. It's huge, an industry. You think trafficking is behind this? It accounts for a lot of missing people, young women in particular. Sex slaves? There's also the black economy. East Europeans as a source of cheap labor working long hours without permits for cash in hand. You've seen it going on. Either way, no one in the embassy is going to have an accurate record of who is here, let alone who is missing. Those are illegals you're talking about. Some are for sure using false travel documents or smuggled in, and some are lured here on false pretenses. They come experiencing jobs as waitresses or models and find their passports are taken away from them by gangsters or pimps. So that definitely rubs me the wrong way. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't think illegals is a good word. And I feel kind of bad that I just repeated it. 165. He's talking to that female officer about the reenactment because she's going to join them and, you know, whatever. And the woman, like, we're like nurses essentially. This is the woman talking to him. She goes, "There are women on the battlefield. I've seen the color supplement. They dress the part. Some of them were supposed to be tending to the wounded." "Camp followers," he, Diamond said, recalling what Augusta White had told him. She snapped back at him. "That's a pejorative term." "Not at all. It's what they're known as. I call them Angels of Mercy. Call them what you like, English. I'm quoting the seal not. I don't think it's meant to insult women. And since your feminist hackles are rising, you may like to know that about a third of the cavalry are women. Why do you have to one-up her?" why have to say his feminist heck? I don't fucking know. Then chapter 21 has them talking with a Ukrainian woman who may have known about Nadia, the sex worker, and I don't know if it's offensive. Again, I don't really know enough about like them to know. But I don't think it's good. So I'll just read this. This is someone telling him about the woman and like who she might be like, or like what she might be like, and he goes, "The Ukrainians are charming people, but once they suspect you're from immigration, you're as welcome as a bowl of cold borscht." And then he goes, "They can't all be illegals. I mean it, Peter. Watch your back." So I don't know. And those are just the vibes. And then she's a very stereotypical like Ukrainian. I think she's Catholic woman. I just feel like I don't know. 22 was just exciting for me because the right-hand man of Peter Diamond gets shot, but it's not fatal. I wanted something to happen, and it didn't. But on my notes I say, "Kill Keith, please, yes." And then I did that. I have a little 2 times right by there, so I retweeted myself. I mentioned earlier how he had like a room to grow as a person. So here's a little bit of reflection he gets, 205. He was reflecting on the shooting of Keith. I wish you fucking got him, dude. Basically, he gave Keith the harder mission because he was being a lazy prick, and then he got shot. He couldn't even argue that it had been about dividing forces according to risk. The decision had been taken on nothing more serious than Keith's offer to cope with another house visit. Up to then, Vicky, who led to him getting shot, had seemed the softer option, and being the governor, he would have taken it as his right, in which case his conscience would still have plagued him. Face it, Peter Diamond, he thought. Either way, you're a selfish bastard. It's true. What does the selfish bastard do after he realizes he's a selfish bastard? Let's read about it. 206 to 207, he's talking about Georgina, so before we get into that, I actually have to go back to 205 because there's sexism. Actually misjudged this. This sexism isn't about Georgina. It's talking about visiting Keith in the hospital. We'll have to drag him out of there if you want to see him again, talking about the right-hand man. The nurses are real babes. Okay. Anyways, basically, he really believes that Rupert and the history professor and Nadia, the woman who was headless and buried underneath the tree, are connected, but he couldn't prove it yet, so he's trying to keep them both under his jurisdiction. And was making fun of everyone's problem. So this is Peter Diamond talking to his like woman detective, and they're talking about Georgina, again, the boss. "Is Georgina on the premises?" This is Peter Diamond asking. And then this is the woman responding. "She was here at the crack of dawn this morning, extremely uptight about Keith. She said she was going to phone the hospital. She thought it best if all of us didn't pester them with calls. He says sensible. She'll be over the moon to hear he's recovering so well. I'll tell her as soon as you're off the phone. I'd rather you didn't." There was a pause. You could almost hear her trying to work it out. "Don't you want her to know?" "Keep her guessing a bit longer. Sympathy sits better with Georgina than good news." Basically, Peter Diamond, his friend, got shot, and instead of telling his boss, who is extremely worried about him, he doesn't say shit to her and tells his officer not to tell her so he can keep her like stressed the fuck out, so he can kind of wedge in the fact that, hey, can I have some glory in this? He's a dick. I hate him. 208, this is kind of funny. This is about Georgina. Surprisingly, not about her boobs. The door was open and she was standing in front of her desk with her arms folded. As if that wasn't intimidating enough, the queen on the wall looked over her right shoulder. -1 points for being British. 214. A prime example of men writing woman. This is a woman saying what I'm about to read. "These days, the female recruits insist on doing everything," she said. "When I joined more than 30 years ago, we delicate creatures didn't think about joining in the fighting. We were angels of mercy, ministering to the dying and wounded. And if that sounds wimpish, is that the word? It was actually rather bold, wearing low-cut frocks and leading over fellows. That's how I met my husband. Who would ever fucking say that? I want to live with you. I don't get angry a lot. Honestly, I finished it, and I had such an empty feeling, and I didn't realize how much time and effort I had wasted on this piece of shit until it was over, and admittedly it's shameful for me to record this. Next, this is 257. And I'm going to remind you for this. This was written in 2009. 2009. And I'm also going to tell you this. For a short second in my life, I was studying molecular and cellular biology, and I love DNA, and I think it's fascinating. So reading this hurt me. For the DNA, Diamond said, using his freshly acquired knowledge. Didn't you know horses have DNA? Lehman went quiet. Yeah, I think it's common knowledge that all the living creatures have DNA, including horses. I think people knew horses had DNA before they fucking knew what DNA was. Because of genetics. Peter? Not Peter Diamond, Peter Lovesey. I'm talking to you right now. That's a stupid fucking line, and it made me angry. Of course horses have DNA. Of course horses have DNA. This is 278. At first, it's a cool little dramatic moment, and then they make it racist. Okay. Diamond nodded. He's talking to Septimus, who is a detective working on a case with him, and he is also black. Diamond nodded. A white stallion. A pale horse. This is Septimus talking. Same thing. You don't get it, do you? Septimus gave him a gaze, burnished with zeal. The Book of Revelation. And I looked, and behold a pale horse, and his name that sat upon him was Death. That was kind of fucking sick, right? No. He fucks it up. For much of the trip along the motorway, those words resonated in Diamond's head. The Bible wasn't often quoted in Bath's CID. Was it stereotyping to suppose Septimus, a member of the black community, was a churchgoer, used to hearing high-flown texts from the pulpit? I'll say -5 in case I'm making an ass out of myself. But it's just like, why was that? That was necessary. You know what you could have written? He didn't see Septimus as a holy man before now, but now he could picture him as committed to his job as he is to his faith, a church-goer used to hearing high-flown texts from the pulpit. Like, you could, like... Anyways, it's a really big thing that Peter Diamond cannot handle any form of technology. Here's 284, his little internal monologue after he calls somebody with a flip phone in a car. There wasn't much for Diamond to see outside the window. Pleased that so much could be achieved from inside a car, he continued to hold the mobile in his hand. He'd come a long way to mastering the little monster, dialing the numbers with his thumb, like teenagers did. Soon he'd progress to texting. Soon? Who am I kidding, he thought. Eventually, perhaps. Toying with it, he pressed the menu key and found the phone book. Not many names were listed. Why did I read that? Why did I read that? Why did I have to say out loud, little monster? 289, I don't know why I wrote this down. But I think it's because one of the characters' names is Chaz McDart. And I thought that was funny. 1 point for me. 292, this is when they talk about how Nadia, the woman who was a sex worker and wanted to work with horses, had sex with a guy. And it's weird. I'll read it a little bit just so you can get it. This is the guy talking about his experience with her. She said some stuff about how good I was. How good. I shuddered to think what I was really like. In the same breath, she told me I could have her any way I wanted if I persuaded my dad to give her a job. So, that just feels gross and icky, and why base some plot on that? This is 197, an example of, like, why this is, like, ugh, it's just, like, frustrating, because, like, there's, like, good stuff in here, but it's absolutely not worth it, and the good stuff is, like, sentences. Here's 197, Gilbert's little Honda chugged steadily upwards until Lanston's battlefield came into view, benign, tinted gold by the evening sun. That's, like, really great. That's like, kind of beautiful. But everything else just weighs it down. See, like, here's another example of the kind of good stuff. 298. A mile or more ahead, the landlocked lighthouse that was William Beckford's Folly appeared on the horizon. The gilded cast iron columns of the lantern were catching the low sun. See how that has, like, this, like, really nice rhythm to it, the flow, the alliteration, not to be like that, but, like, there's alliteration, there's, like, a vibe to it, and you totally, you can get it. But it's just, and that's something I think Lovesey is really good at, and he kind of shows it again and again, But it's just everything else about this book is fucking insufferable. See, like again on 300, they were blocked by a dense patch of brambles more than head high, sprouting a few pathetic blackberries, as if all their strength had gone into creating sturdy, vicious-looking shoots. Like, why can't we just stick with that and not talking about fucking bouncing bosoms? I'm gonna kill you. So they're in that like creepy fucking tunnel, right next to the horse, and so Peter Diamond leaves his partner there and makes him, keep watch. And he goes, 306. Thanks, Gilbert, that's the man he's leaving behind, said bleakly. He added as the big man turned away. May I have the flashlight? Sorry, lad. I don't fancy that graveyard in the dark. Bitch. I hate you, Peter Diamond. 311. Another really fucking good way to add suspense and tone that is wasted on this book, and a way of writing that is wasted on this author. The cool of the early evening had turned in a matter of minutes to a shivery cold. That's cool. It's the same feeling, but it's not, and you waste it. No one's reading this far. I read this far because I hate myself. No, I don't. 312, it's just a little bit funny. Gilbert is, the guy who was left behind, and someone comes up with him, like, shining a flashlight in his eyes, so he goes into fighting mode, and he, like, gets the guy behind his back, and then he goes, who the fuck are you, Gilbert demanded. A man of God. What? Charles Smart. And he's, like, a priest or something, but, like, that's your arm is behind your back. It's about to be broken, okay? It's about to be broken. And someone asks who you are, and the first thing you say is a man of God? 313. This is Peter Diamond talking. The real job starts now, and I'm not expecting any favors from the suspects. We'll take them one at a time using the interview room with one-way class, so the rest of you can see how we do. Cavalry Officer Smith, that's his female co-worker. I need you with me for the first one. Excitement was written large on Ing's face, and no one seemed to mind that she was the first choice, particularly as the suspect was female. What does that mean? What does that mean, Peter? You could just be saying, oh, it makes sense, woman to woman. But I don't have that much faith in you, Peter. I don't have that much faith. What are you talking about? 319, once again, I don't like cops. And also, it's just allowed they're interviewing suspects or whatever, or interrogating. And the guy's going, what if I tell you I didn't go there at all? Diamond countered with, what if I tell you we have a signing of your car on the side of the road? Actually, they hadn't, but if Tipping wanted to trade in speculation, so could he. Can he? Can police officers lie to the people they're interrogating? I wouldn't be surprised, but that feels fucked up. And then finally, on a good note, he does a really good job at describing a warm environment. He gets everyone drinks after the case is closed, and it's just like talking with people or whatever, and they say that the guy that was shot, I still wish he kind of died, but the guy that was shot, he hasn't been seen because he's been recovering from being shot. And so he actually shows up, and it says, there's a huge cheer when Keith Hallwell, that's him, pale but smiling broadly, walked in with his wife. And it's kind of nice. And then, of course, everything is sour. He's talking to, the girl he wants to fuck. And he goes, it's no bad thing to let them feel appreciated. She said that's the woman saying it. And then Diamond says, they get that all the time from me. And it says, and for that evening, you might have believed him. He was fucking lying. Peter Diamond sucks. I'm going to do something that's a little cathartic for me while I give my little final speech. I've never done this, and I will use what I'm about to do to make recycled paper, so I feel justified. First of all, let me really break this spine. Let me just really fuck this book. Peter Diamond is a person that could just have a lot of potential in the sense that he that's not to do what I thought. In the sense that I guess I'll say Peter Lovesey has a really good way of intricately weaving in environment and history and characteristics into the dialogue and the descriptions. However, each character is laced and truly rotting in misogyny and bigotry that makes it just fucking insufferable to read. And it is just unbelievable that this was published, this was edited, this was written in 2009 or ever. And I just really hated reading it. I really did. It was not a good experience, and honestly, I regret putting so much of my life through it. Does this make me feel really fucking good? Yeah, it does. It really does. And it's nice to know that I will be able to reuse these covers because I'm getting into bookbinding and all these things, so nothing will go to waste, and hopefully this will be recycled into a much better piece of literature that does not contain not even biases or implicit things. It is very explicit, it is very clear, and it is dangerous because it allows this narrative and these ideas to become normalized and spread when in fact it is not okay. So, thank you, Peter Diamond, for allowing me in full conscious to do this. It feels nice. Let this be a lesson to all of us. There is a reason people get books to thrift stores. Thank you for watching. Thank you for stopping by. And next time, I'm talking about books. Hopefully, it is not as shitty as this. That. Where's the other cover? That was Skeleton Hill. Reading this and picking apart all the biases, it kind of made me think of the Roald Dahl controversy going on. And admittedly, I don't know that much, but as I understand it, they are censoring his books for including language like calling people fat and things like that. Really, they should be addressing how anti-Semitic he was. But I don't want this book to exist, right? I do not. But I do think it's important that we don't censor things that are harmful, rhetoric that are harmful. We don't try to erase them because that gets us nowhere. I think the focus when it comes to problematic literature should always be on media literacy and picking apart the biases, understanding why it's wrong, why it's harmful. And we are betting on the wrong horse, and we know why. It's because people don't want to face the consequences, and people don't want to grow. They want to live in bigotry. And it's easier to live in bigotry if you're in the dark. But it just really worries me because there will never be a perfect piece of media. There will never be a perfectly, palatable piece of anything because every single person has biases because every single person is a person. And so it scares me, the way we kind of search more for palatability and we try to sanitize these things instead of focusing on why were they wrong and how can we improve and how can we repay the people that were hurt by this. And so as much as I fucking hated this book and I wish it didn't exist, I do think it's important that I was able to read it and pick through these biases and understand why they're wrong and things like that, as opposed to not understanding why at all and just feeling uncomfortable. The uncomfortable should lead to discussion and learning, and it should not lead to censorship and suppression. So as much as I shit on this, media literacy is important, but also this was fucking ass, and both can coexist. So thank you for watching. Thank you for stopping by. I already said that. And I'll give you a little close-up of the damage, and then I'll say goodbye. Right, man? That was really nice. Yeah, that just feels good. Look at my fucking... Look at my note card. Thank you for watching. Bye. Listen to this paragraph. So they're examining the evidence they found with the dude's murder, Rupert. I don't know how I'm going to explain this. And then the girl's murder and the hair that has been found. And it says something cropped up and they want an explanation. The people who did like the processing. They want an explanation. They're saying it's a horse rug. Okay, it's not a blanket. It's a horse rug. They removed a number of horse hairs from it and compared them with the ones we sent them previously from the zip fly. They say it comes from the same horse. The horse killed them! Peter. Peter. The horse is here.
Peter. The horse is here.
Me when I find a dead horse in a collapsed tunnel. Peter! The horse is here. I'm losing my fucking mind. When did I start this? 3 a.m.? What time is it? Yeah, it's 4. What a fucking shit show.